welcome to the Flame and Fiber podcast. My name is Barbara. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as DeevaaS. And thank you so much for joining me. Oh my gosh. It's been so long since I've done a podcast that I'm not even sure how I start them. I have been doing my daily vlog, however, almost every day. Many of you join me there and I do appreciate it. Today was vlog number 629. We are soon going to be having our second anniversary of daily vlogs, which is crazy and a little bit horrifying that coronavirus is still such a part of our lives. But I do appreciate your company in this whole thing we're going through, and it is invaluable to me for my happiness and mental health, and I know many of you are being helped by the community too, and I am so grateful for that. I cannot tell you. But it's time for a regular podcast. When last we met, which was in early October, I was, quite frankly, in the middle of a mojo funk for my knitting, which I'm sure I told you about. I mean, part of the reason why I haven't podcasted very much is because my mojo has been relatively low. So I am very happy to report that I feel like my mojo is back, or almost back, pretty back. I've been knitting, and I've been just knitting because it's been making me feel good, and it feels like what I want to do, which is exactly what knitting and crocheting and the crafting that we do is for. So I will say that has been a big plus for me this December. I showed you the shawl that I made my daughter for her wedding. Christy got married at the beginning of September, and I knit her a shawl. And that was sort of the beginning of the return of my mojo. It did take a little while, I have to admit. But by the end of November, beginning of December, I was knitting. And I was knitting for pleasure, and I was knitting for comfort. And that just made me happy, I have to say. And it brought me joy. So I won't make you wait to the end. I'll do a little bit of admin right now because we have ended the Ode to Joy Make-Along for 2021. I forgot to close the thread, but if you posted there on January 1st, I'm going to close the thread as soon as I'm done recording this and open the 2022 Ode to Joy thread, and you'll need to repost in that because we're going to go for another year because obviously we still need joy. But I wanted to make sure that the grand prize was given away because it is so amazing. I showed it on my vlog, but it is a set of bags made by the wonderful Cowl. Big bags, small bags, mug rugs, but how charming and delightful. It says Ode to Joy 2021 on the ribbons. It is so wonderful. I can't believe it. I can't believe it, how wonderful it is. Now, Carol was sweet enough to make me a bag this same size. It has completely different fabric, but it's a wonderful bag, and it's a wonderful size. And it's got pockets inside, lots of pockets. And anyway, it's a wonderful bag. And so I wanted to be sure and draw right away for the grand prize. So I drew it on January 1st. Now, I had intended on podcasting on January 1st, but that didn't happen. Today's the 3rd that I'm recording this. Whether or not it gets up today depends, because I am kind of planning to do a little review of what I did. Luckily, I don't have all that many finishes for 2021, so it won't be that big of a deal. And in fact, for most of them, I'm just going to go and find them and take pictures. The first thing in my parade for 2021 will be this sweater that I'm wearing, which is the backbone sweater that I made out of the minis leftovers after I did the Advent Cowl last December. I had so much gorgeous yarn left that I made this. And I have to say, it is my favorite sweater. It is just so gorgeous. I love the collar. I love the collar detail, and the yarns are so beautiful, and the beautiful buttons by Round Rabbit. And anyway, item number 1 in my 2021 finished objects parade. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so I did not do the podcast on the 1st as I had originally intended, but I did draw the winners, and I reported them on the vlog. So in fact, the grand prize winner has already contacted me and knows, and that is Bee Pearl on Ravelry, the lovely Bee, and she lives in British Columbia. And she has been in touch with me. We are in conversation because included in the package from Carol will be a couple of skeins of yarn from me, and I want to make sure that I give her something that she can use and wants. But I also picked for my favorite sweater has mohair, and so I get fuzz in my mouth. I also picked 4 pattern prizes, and the winners of the pattern prizes are Heather, and her Ravelry name is Hertzen, Hevertsen, Hevertsen. So Heather, get in touch with me for a pattern. Yvonne, Yuhiha, or Yvhiha, maybe YV, because my handwriting, but I can look it up. It's post number 1592. I picked myself, which, you know, and Lisa, you get another pattern prize, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you pick in case I want to do it too. And our lovely Valerie got the 4th pattern prize. So if you guys all put stuff here, contact me. Nobody's contacted me about a pattern yet, but I have talked to Bee for the grand prize. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for participating in the Ode to Joy Make-Along. It has been such an amazing year, looking at what you guys have done and interacting with you all and helping bring joy to us all, and it looks like we're going to need it again for 2022. So I will start a new thread and we will go from there. I'm not sure how the prizes will work in 2022, but I will see what we can do. All right, that's what I get for putting moisturizer on and then putting a mohair sweater. I'm not wearing lipstick because I know better than that. So, it was time to do a podcast for many reasons. One of them is the wonderful grand prize that Carol made us, and I wanted to be sure that everybody saw it and everybody could hear who won. Although Bee is a vlog watcher, so she heard it on the 1st. But I have been knitting, and I have FOs out the wazoo. So I'm just going to go. Of course, it's 8 minutes in, so me just going is different than everybody else in the world just going. And of course, I have so much junk. Oh, man. I have so much junk on my table that I can't do anything without a struggle. Trying to get my sock blockers, but they're all wound up in threads and yarns. Oh. Maybe I'll take that out. Probably not. So I broke the rules of podcasting, and I cannot remember the yarn dyer of this yarn. I remember the name of the yarn. It's called Angry Birds. And I am not a phone game player. I never played Angry Birds. But I got this yarn at SSK. And I decided I just wanted to do a self-striping and just see what happened. I have several sock tubes. I decided, even though it's self-striping, I didn't want to do an afterthought heel. So I did a Vanilla is the New Black heel. It's one of my favorite heels to make because I do all my sock knitting 2 at a time. And so I did that, and I decided I was just going to go with it and see how it turned out, and it turned out pretty good. I don't, the front of the sock, it's not going to be obvious to anybody but us that I interrupted the striping. It looks pretty good. So I got this yarn. I'm pretty sure I got this yarn at SSK a few years ago when I was there, and I think I might have found the tag earlier in December and set it on the vlog. If that's the case, then I'm going to see if I can find that and put it on the screen. If I don't find it before I'm ready to edit, I'll try to put it in the down bar when I figure it out. But I knit some socks, and you can see the all I did was, when the color changed, I just did a row of knit 1, slip 1, just to give it a little something something, make it a little bit interesting. But otherwise, and I did not do an afterthought heel. I did the Vanilla is the New Black heel, and I don't remember who the author of that is. I will put it here. But since I do 2 at a time, magic loop on the same needle, not all heels really work easily that way, and the Vanilla is the New Black is one that does. So this is my first sock FO. I have 2 of them, and I really love them, but I haven't worn them yet because, podcaster. Then I got an idea. Well, I have had quite a few sock whips in varying states of progress. So I decided I would start working on those. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm not sure which one. Okay, so these, I was in the middle of the heel also, and these are, I'm sure this is, oh, I think I did find the tag for this. This is Knit Picks Hawthorne in Knit Picks Hawthorne, yeah. Knit Picks Hawthorne Fingering in the colorway Alberta Arts. And I thought this was a beautiful, beautiful color. But I apparently, well, I made the socks longish. And I apparently had taken some of the yarn out of this ball of yarn, because this is well, it was 357 yards, and I should have been able to get 2 socks out of 357 yards, but I did not. I got to the end and realized I wasn't going to have enough for my toes, so I took some yarn. This is the yarn that I dyed last year, and I made my daughter a boxy out of this yarn. But the base of that yarn is Knit Picks Stroll Bear, and then I dyed it. And I thought it went really, really well. So I was really happy with how that turned out. But again, this is the Vanilla is the New Black. And these socks had been sitting half finished for several years. I'm quite sure. I mean, I feel like I haven't really worked on socks for a couple of years. I've been having the year of the sweater for the last couple years and been doing a lot of sweaters. And I don't I do feel like maybe I was getting tired of doing quite so many sweaters, and that was contributing to my low mojo. But so in my last podcast, I showed a couple of cowls that I had knit up really quickly, like in a day or two, and that felt good. So that was part of the recovering my mojo process. So I started to need smaller projects. And once I finished these Angry Bird socks, I thought, well, you know, I've just done the Vanilla's the New Black heel. Let me go back and try to figure out where the heck I was on these socks. And because I was in the middle of the heel when I stopped them all those months ago. And so I thought, let me start again and let me finish these socks. And I did. So now this is my second pair of finished socks. So I'm not one to, you know, defy the knitting gods and try to stop a roll. So then I went and found my next pair of socks that were on the needles. And this pair of socks, as I recall, and I could be wrong, this pair of socks, I had gotten to the point where I had already cut. So this is an afterthought heel sock because this is Felici. This is Felici fingering in the carrot cake colorway. And we do like a Felici sock, you know. So, and this, my previous experiences with Felici, I have been a little disappointed because the way they did the color striping back in the olden days, and I can't seem to be able to get this sock on, excuse me, on correctly on this stupid thing. In the olden days, it seemed like they would have stripes next to each other that were so close in color, you couldn't really tell that it changed color. It was very hard to tell it changed color, which I found odd and kind of ridiculous. Well, that did not happen with this carrot cake. Apparently, they decided to put the icing between all the different colors, and voila, we don't have that problem. So I had actually cut the heel and had it sitting on DPNs waiting for me to put in the afterthought heel, and I stopped. And this was also many, many months ago, maybe years ago. So it was quite a while. The way I do my socks, I knit all my socks top down. When I first started knitting socks, I started knitting toe up because I didn't want to have like leftovers, and I thought then I can just keep knitting till I run out of yarn. But after delving into the world of knitting and learning all about, you know, cozy memory blankets and lots of things you can do with leftover fingering yarn, I changed my tune and started knitting my socks top down. And since I haven't done the calculations, and apparently I'm not interested in ever doing the calculations to figure out where I should put my heel in a finished sock, what I do is I knit down for quite a while till I know I'm in the foot. And then I decide how long do I want the leg of my sock to be, and that's where I decide to put the heel. And I put the heel in before I finish the toe because I want to be able to put the sock on with the heel so that I can just put it on and decide where to start my toe based on where my toe sticks out. And so that's why I was like up to here knitting the sock, and one of the socks I had already cut for the afterthought heel, and so then I decided in December that, hey, I could finish these socks too. I'm almost done. I just need to cut the heels, so I did. So I finished these 2 heels and went on and finished the toe. And the contrasting yarn on this is called Eggplant. And it's also Knit Picks. I think it's Stroll, but I'm not sure. If I come across the tag, I will let you know for sure. But I don't see it. So there you go. Now, the majority of these socks were knit prior to 2021, but they finished in 2021, so they count. So there you go. That's finished object number 3. So then I figured now I'm really on a roll. So I had, oh no, where's my, oh, there it is. I had some self-striping yarn that I had bought from the Cozy Knitter, I don't know how many years ago. It's on her Bliss base, which is 80% superwash, 20% nylon. And the colorway is called New Horizons, which I thought was very pretty. And so I decided, I'm into the stripes now. I'm into the stripes. Let me just keep going. And this, when I ordered it, I had had her skein it up for me in 2 different skeins because I knit 2 at a time, and it's really better for me to knit from a separate ball. Apparently I should have blocked these because I'm having a terrible time getting them on the, there we go. I sometimes pull from the inside and the outside of a ball of yarn to do my 2 at a time, but I like to have 2 balls, and since this is self-striping, I had some desire to have the socks match, which is not typical for me. I don't usually care, but I just thought that would be fun if they did. And so I asked her to, and this was years ago, and I hadn't done anything with it, so I thought, let me just keep going with the self-striping, because I don't have tons of self-striping yarn. And to be honest, I had that yarn in my giveaway pile. I had gone through my yarn. I don't know if you remember, I think on my last podcast, this was all empty. And I had the yarn all over the guest bed. And as I had gone through the yarn back in the summertime, you know, end of September, I think it was more like the end of September, I emptied these shelves and went through it and decided on some giveaways, because I have giveaways to give away, you know, Ode to Joy Make-Along. And I had put several skeins of self-striping sock yarn in the giveaway pile thinking, well, you know, I'm not making socks. Somebody will enjoy this. Let me do that. And then come December, I start making socks and I start taking stuff out of that pile. So there you go. Anyway, I decided it was time to do some more self-striping, and so I grabbed this yarn. Well, this yarn, it's not the yarn. When I was in, here's what I have left on each one of those balls. As I was knitting this, and I knit 2 at a time, magic loop, I realized that I kept dropping stitches at the juncture where the two needles met. Every once in a while, I'm like, I dropped another stitch, and I would fix it or whatever. But at one point, I dropped a stitch right here, and I hadn't caught it until much later, so I had it sitting there with a, you know, bulb pin in it so it wouldn't, you know, run, thinking that I was going to go and fix that later. But then I'm looking at it and saying, well, you know, that's not a bad place for me to just cut, for, you know, put my heel in. I'll do that. And that'll, you know, it'll all come out in the wash. Well, as it turned out, I'm not very good at calculating how things, you know, look and where things are. So anyway, when I, and my previous technique for cutting in my afterthought heels, and mine are true afterthought heels. I don't decide where the heel's going to be until I get down to here, is that I would weave in, let's see if I can find a picture of what these socks or the other socks looked like. But I use a double pointed needle, you know, and where I decide I'm going to cut the heel, I grab each stitch with this double pointed needle, then I drop down one row and or two rows, one or two rows when I get that wrong too, and put the stitches in so that when I do the clipping and pick out that one row, my live needles are already on those double pointed needles. That's how I was doing it. And so I tried to do that with this sock using that missing stitch as my guide of where I wanted to do that, and I got it wrong. And I had things going all over the place, and it was running, and instead of just a slit, I had this wide mouth, and I think it was basically involving 3 rows at least instead of just the one row. And I'm like, oh my, and there was kind of a big hole right where that one stitch was, and I'm thinking, I have just ruined my socks, you know, what am I going to do? And I felt bad, but I thought, you know, let me just work on it. And I did. And I was able to pick up the stitches in such a way that I had a big hole, but it wasn't ruined, and I had what could be a heel. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure which sock it was, because I did try to replicate a little bit what I did. But I was able to pick it up, and what I did was I knit like 5 rounds just around the hole before I started the decreases to turn it into a heel. And that worked. And I did these heels separately. So I fixed the first heel and got it okay. And, you know, then I'm like, now what do I do with the second heel so that it mostly matches? And they both match completely on the top of the sock. The only difference is in the heel. And Christy was here at the time because this was happening right around Christmas. And she was like, you know, if your feet don't care, nobody cares, you know. And I'm like, you're right. I shouldn't worry about it. So when I did the second sock, I had a lot of trouble with my process of picking up those stitches. It never was, you know, I often had to do the second one twice, and sometimes I ended up on the wrong row and whatever. And once I realized that I had made such a mess of this one, I decided, that's it. I'm done with this whole worrying about it, because the stitches don't run up and run away so quickly on sock yarn. They just don't do that. So what I did was I figured out where I wanted it. I snipped the yarn and I picked it out, and then I got my needles and I put my needles in for that half, and then I picked the other side and got the needles and picked up the stitches, and I did not lose a single stitch. And I didn't, and it was so much easier and less frustrating to me than it was to try to do those, pick up those stitches on that needle, on the 2 DPNs before I started that. Now I have a new way of doing an afterthought heel. It's a true afterthought heel, snip, clip, dip, 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 stick them on the regular needles and go. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So these are my 4th pair of finished socks. And this is also the eggplant. It's the same that I used on the Felici. And I didn't do anything fancy. I didn't even do slip stitches or anything here, but I really love these. I am so excited to do this podcast so I can start wearing my socks. I didn't wash them and block them, but I also didn't wear them. So I'm really excited to have these in my rotation. I have had several pairs, maybe three pairs of socks since I started sock knitting, which has been probably 5 years, that I have worn out the heels and I need to repair. I do have a darning mushroom, but I have never actually used it, and I have never actually repaired any of my socks. But I haven't thrown them. Well, I threw the first ones away because that yarn was inappropriate and they got wrecked right away. But the other ones, I have them here somewhere, but I haven't done anything with them to fix them. So it was starting, and all my other ones are well worn. I only wear my hand knit socks all winter. When I wear socks. I mean, I don't really wear socks very much in the summertime. But I wear them all winter, and I always wear my hand knit socks. Just as this is the 2nd winter in a row where I'm wearing my hand knit sweaters every day. So it was starting to feel like I needed to get a little, start working on my inventory. So I'm really excited to have these 4 pairs of socks. Not only for my sock drawer, but also for my soul, because they have really helped me. They have really helped me get my mojo back. And I'm going to need a knitting project tomorrow. And I don't know, I might be starting a new pair of socks so that I have something to knit while I'm out and about tomorrow. We'll talk about that later. So those are my 4 pair of socks that I knit. So then Advent came, and I exchanged Advents again this year with the lovely Megan in New Zealand. And her gift to me this year was she hand dyed every one of the minis that she sent me. And they are so gorgeous. Many of the minis in this were hand dyed by her as well. Last year I had a Crafty Toads Advent and Megan's Advent. This year, Megan, poor Megan, she had it all on her, and she just sent me the most gorgeous yarn. So go find my Advent openings in my vlog and you will see I did it every day and it was wonderful. But while I was doing it, I was also knitting. So this is my Advent cowl, and I wrote it down because my memory is not that. It's the Shale Advent Cowl by Southern Skeins is the designer. It's a free pattern. It has like this shell pattern in it, and the one line that has all the stuff going on has a mistake in it, but I've never done shell before, and I could figure out what the mistake was because it obviously doesn't match up. Anyway, this is in between. I have Knit Picks Bear Stroll, and then I have these beautiful, beautiful colors that Megan dyed for me. And I am just in love. Now, the pattern says you need 12 20-gram minis. Well, Megan and I exchanged 10-gram minis. And I only used about 5 grams in each one of these rows. So the pattern overestimates how much you need for each of your colors. And so if you have scraps, you could do it. Anyway, I really enjoyed knitting it. I enjoy wearing it. And And once you figure out the change to the pattern, it's, it was fun to make. It was a lot of fun to make, and I loved the, I think I only used 11 colors, too. I felt like it was long enough, because it doesn't go all the way around more than once, and so I didn't want it too long and get it too bunchy there. So this is my Shale Advent Cowl that I made during Advent with the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful yarn that Megan gave me. And now I've got to figure out what to do with the rest of the beautiful yarn, because I didn't use them all. And even the ones I used, I didn't use all of each of those. So there you go. Pretty lovely, and I'm really happy with it, I must say. Then it got cold in the winter, and I have a fun pair of felted boots that I got on a trip to Russia, Russian felted boot slippers that are a little too narrow, and I was starting to feel like I needed to put them on the stretcher again for a while. So I decided to make myself some slippers. And so I found a pattern. The Lion brand, it's a free pattern and called Felted Slip-Ons. And I ended up making myself some slippers. And let me tell you, I wore these for a week, and I washed them, and the water was so filthy. I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta wash my floors. But I have dogs that tramp the mud in my house. Okay, so these are really cute. These are felted slippers. And the trick with these that I thought was so clever is it's a Lion brand pattern. So they call for 2 different kinds of Lion brand, real wool and not real wool. So I used Cascade 220 for the foot of it. So you knit the foot in a yarn that will felt, and then you knit the top part in a yarn that will not felt. Clever, clever. So I did a swatch, which is downstairs. I cut the swatch. I did a huge swatch. I cut the swatch up, and I'm using them as mug rugs. Because that's how huge I did. But I wasn't sure if this Cascade 220 would felt or not. So I made a big thing, and I ran it through the washer and dryer and discovered that it indeed did felt very nicely. This is such an interesting top. So it's, you know, gives you lots of room for your toes, but it doesn't, I don't have a foot form or last that would, you know, when I was done felting them, I couldn't get them. Anyway, they look good on my foot. And they feel good on my foot. So anyway, I made a big swatch that felted, and so I was good to go. Now, what I did on the top was this was a worsted. Well, it was 220. So what's that? That's like between a DK and a worsted. But it went really thick when it was felted. So what I did was I took a DK yarn that I had dyed. It was a superwash yarn. And I held it with Stroll Bear. I have Stroll Bear because that's the stripes in my granny stripe blanket that I'm making for our king size bed. So I have lots of Bear Stroll, which I keep swiping to do other things with. So when it was time to get something that wouldn't felt, I combined the Bear Stroll with that DK. Now this was a DK that I had dyed in my dyeing classes at Neighborhood Fiber Company in Baltimore 3 or 4 years ago. And I had used it a little bit, and then I had more, and I thought it went really well with the sort of dusty rose color of the of the cascade. And I have recently seen, oh, I was going to say, I have recently seen that. There you go. So this is the Cascade 220. It is 100 grams, 220 yards, 100% Peruvian Highland wool. And the color number is 8863. It doesn't seem to have a name. So that's what I used for the feet of these things. So basically I knit this giant slipper, and then I threw it in the wash, and I ended up throwing it in the wash with something that ended up really fuzzy, so I wasn't going to dry it, but then I thought maybe the dry will help get the fuzz off, and it did. So this just fits me. It does not super roomy, but it worked great. I wear a size 8, and I made the size large based on, because I measured my swatch before I felted it and after I felted it. So based on the amount of shrinkage that I got on my swatch, I decided to do the size large, even though for my foot size it said medium. I have no idea how Cascade 200 felts compared to how Lion Brand Fisherman Wool felt. So I went with my swatch, even though swatches are big fat liars, and did the calculation and decided to do a size large for my size 8 foot, and it worked great. The one thing that I did wrong, because always something wrong, is as I was doing and keeping in mind that the bottom of this was nice and giant when I was knitting the top part, I misread the pattern, and so I ended up, after a few rows, then you're supposed to do 5 decrease rows, and then you knit for a while. I only did 1 decrease row and then knit for a while. So first of all, my top is about 4 rows too short. As it happens, it doesn't matter. They stay on beautifully. It's not an issue. And I always wear these over my hand knit socks, so I didn't need the length for warmth. But as I was doing it, and since I didn't do all the decreases, I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be pretty wide open. How's that going to work out? So when I did my bind off, I did a tight bind off. I didn't do a stretchy bind off. It has worked fine for me. They stay on beautifully, and they're comfortable, and it's certainly not an issue. But that was one change I made by accident, because as I was knitting, I was saying, hey, seems like there should be more decreases here. If I could read a pattern. But anyway, so here are my slippers. So this is finished object number 6, because I had 4 socks and a cowl and my slippers. Now, the other thing that is a finished object since last I podcast was I was working on a boxy. And it won't surprise anybody to hear that that boxy was for Megan for her Christmas present. And here she is in the boxy, and it looks so gorgeous on her. Now, that boxy was made from Knit Pick Stroll Bear that I dyed last year because I was trying to make a speckled yarn for Christie's boxy. And this was the first yarn that I did, and it didn't come out anything like I had imagined it would, and it didn't come out what I thought was speckly enough. So that's when I got more and dyed this color, and so Christie's boxy is this color. But I had enough of that other yarn for a boxy, so I made Megan a boxy, and for her Christmas present. And of course I couldn't say who it was for or whatever, although I'm sure she figured it out. But anyway, so since I last podcast, I finished the boxy, and it turned out really cute. Of course, the boxy is by Joji Locatelli, and this is in fact the 6th boxy that I made. When I started that, I didn't know who was going to, you know, it wasn't let me go make a boxy for Megan. It was I need to knit a boxy. Even though I own 2 boxies, I had given away 3 boxies already. But the last year and a half, I need, oh, I'm getting warm. See how pink I am? I think this is a warm sweater I'm wearing, and so I don't need the warmth from the cowl. But I needed to knit a boxy. I needed to just sit and do stockinette. I didn't want to think. I didn't want to, you know. So the boxy was the perfect thing for me to do. So it was very therapeutic for me. And in the end, I realized it has to be for Megan. She made me a beautiful sweater last year for Christmas, and I thought I would like to make her a sweater. And the boxy turned out to be exactly what I needed. It was great therapy. I'm sure doing that boxy helped me stay knitting a little bit even when I was quite low mojo, and that really helped me. But I finished that boxy not that long after I did my last podcast. I think I did my last podcast like October 10th. And I had to mail me, I had to get her Advent package to New Zealand. I have to mail it at the end of October. So I only had a couple of weeks to finish the boxy and wash and block it and mail it off. And so it was the first thing I finished after my last podcast. So there is all the FOs in my book. However, I was supposed to be podcasting on the 1st, but I'm recording this on the 3rd. And in the meanwhile, between the 1st when I wrote my notes and today, I have another FO. For my Christmas gift from Megan, she dyed me some beautiful, beautiful yarn. I have a set of minis, which I don't have up here to show you, on sparkly yarn that are so beautiful. And then she also gave me a skein of DK weight yarn, and here is what I have left. But it is such a gorgeous autumny color, and it knit up so gorgeous, and I decided this has got to be a hat. And I got a lot of recommendations. You should try the Burrow Hat by Isola Teague. And I'm like, okay, all right, fine. So I go on Ravelry to look up the Burrow Hat to see if that's what I wanted to do. And the lovely Valerie had gifted me the pattern. Thank you, my dear. It was such a sweet thing. So there you go. Answer solved. And I had a new bag. This is the new bag that I got from Carol for my Christmas present from her, which was so sweet, which is how I know that that bag for the prize is a wonderful bag, because I have a wonderful bag. So there you go. Anyway, so I started the Burrow Hat, and I could look on Ravelry and see when Valerie gave me that pattern, but I think it was less than a week ago, but I'm not sure. But anyway, I knit a Burrow Hat. I am so excited about it. Look how beautiful it is. I love the yarn. Megan's like, oh, it's knitting up so beautifully. I'm like, yeah, we decided we both would love to have a sweater's quantity of this. Unfortunately, she doesn't think she can reproduce this color, which is really a shame because it is so gorgeous. Isn't this beautiful? So this is the Burrow Hat. And the cool thing about the Burrow Hat is it's really, you know, it's completely reversible, because this, what you see, is also exactly what's on the inside. So there's no, you know, so it's completely reversible. If you're not familiar with the pattern, I will show you the pattern, and you can see what I mean when I say my house is muddy, because it fell on the floor, and look what happened to it. But basically, this is the Burrow. This is the beautiful Isola wearing it. And so I was going along, and I was getting down here, and my ball of yarn was getting smaller. And I realized that there was not enough yarn in that skein, and I didn't know how many yards it was, for me to do the whole Burrow Hat. So the lovely Megan said that she would, she thought she had another skein and she would send it to me. Well, she's in New Zealand. And by that time, I had an idea. I am friends with Leslie, Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast, and I do watch her regularly. And, I'm into the whole figure it out from your stash plan. So I went to my stash and found a really pretty DK weight yarn that had already been used for something else, but I thought I had enough of it, and I did. I only had a yard of it left over when I was done, however. So I can't show you anything. Wasn't even a yard, a foot. I'm sorry, a foot. So this is from Skano Yarn. It was for Yarn Box, so of course I got it, donkeys years ago. And it's 60% silk and 40% fine merino, 275 yards, and in the colorway Splendid Norma. And I think that this Yarn Box yarn, they did quite a few different colors, and they were like named after famous opera singers or something. So anyway, my color was called Splendid Norma. And the reason I picked it was because it did have it had lots of colors, but some of the colors were very reminiscent of the colors in this beautiful yarn. So this is what the inside of the hat looks like, or the other side of the hat. And so starting here, I did 2 rows of Splendid Norma and 2 rows of Gorgeous Megan all the way up to the very tippy top of the hat. And I literally had a foot of Splendid Norma left. And this is how much I had of the yarn that Megan gave me. But I absolutely love how that turned out. And the combination turned out so beautifully. I'm so excited. So the Muscle Burrow hat, so mess up my hair. So the Muscle Burrow hat, there you go. This is what it looks like, not turned up. So this is DK, basically doubled. So this is a warm hat to start with. I'm not a huge fan of a slouch, but this is a small slouch, and I think it's kind of cute, I have to admit. But if it's really cold and I need a lot of warmth around my ears, you can pull it down and cover the ears. I don't have my glasses on. Cover the ears, and then you have a cute striped hat with a lovely, gorgeous brim. And of course, since it's reversible, I should have waited till the end. Because it's reversible, you have a lovely fall scrunchy hat, or you have a very warm fall hat with a really cute striped brim. So I have to say, I thank you so much for the suggestion for the Muscle Burrow hat. Thank you again, Valerie, for the pattern. Thank you, Megan, for the yarn. Oh, okay, that's it. That's it. The glamour's gone. Anyway, I am so tickled, and this is my last FO, because I finished this last night. I'm like, it's going to be an FO. I won't have any whips, but that's okay. I will say that I finished this and then immediately said, oh, maybe I should make one of these in fingering weight, which is why I'm sitting here saying, should I start? I need something to knit tomorrow because I'm taking my mother-in-law to the doctor, to her rehab, and so I'm going to be sitting there knitting, and I don't have a travel-ish knit. So when I was done with this, I thought, oh, I should do a fingering version. And then, of course, I'm sitting here saying, but I have all those minis left over. And someone told me that the Naughty Knitwood did a Muscle Burrow hat with her advents. And I'm thinking I could do a fingering Muscle Burrow. That would be beautiful. And it would also be with Megan's yarn. Anyway, so I'm really happy with this, and I am seriously thinking about casting one on, so I'll have something to knit tomorrow. But then, as I was doing the sock, I was thinking, every serious knitter has a sock on the go, right? unless they hate making socks. So, I don't know, maybe I'll cast on both tonight and then see what I feel like doing tomorrow. Those are my FOs. I have been really busy, and everything here was pretty much started and finished since Thanksgiving. Well, the 2 whip socks were not, because they were started years ago. But all this knitting that I've done has been in the last 6 or 8 weeks. And it feels really good because I've been sitting in my chair and, you know, for various reasons, being, you know, anxious or, you know, whatever, the holidays, whatever. And the knitting has helped. Knitting for me, you know, it is good therapy, and a lot of people feel the same way with their crafting. So there you go. Those are my finished objects. I do have a couple whips to talk about. First and foremost, my daughter is a floss tuber. Her floss tube is linked below, Christy's Corner. But she also designs. She's also a designer for embroidery and cross-stitch patterns. And last year I was working on a temperature library that she designed, and I kind of petered out with that, I will admit, in the summertime, late spring, summer, because one of the reasons was I was doing embroidery, which I am not an embroiderer. I thought, oh, this is a good way for me to embroider. And I did great for a long time. I was doing it during, we have crafting together sessions on Sunday nights. I was doing it then, and I was keeping up. And then the crafting sessions started to fall apart in the late spring because of busy this or whatever. And then I, you know, and I lost my mojo for things, to be honest. So anyway, this year she designed another temperature library, and she, you know, in honor of Chevis and me, I'm very honored, she designed a drinks library. Well, a drinks shelf. Grab your drink. Anybody who watches Chevis recognizes that. And the idea is, I thought that was going to be, here's the colored one. The idea is that in the drink is the temperature for the day. And of course, since this was partly designed, partly in my honor, I of course, and it's cross stitch, and I realized that I needed to do cross stitch rather than embroidery. So I decided to do the, do it on size 14-inch Aida, which turned out maybe to be a mistake because it is really huge. On the other hand, some of these drinks are shot glasses and they only have 3 stitches in the color. So it was kind of I decided, what the heck, I'm going to do big, and maybe it's a pillow, I don't know. And you can just see I've only started the outline. I have not started, and it's the 3rd. So yes, I'm already behind. And it's so funny because I watched Christy's floss tube last night, and when I was done, I'm like, oh, I'm on a stitch. And then, but I'm sitting in the chair, and my stitching is on the other side of the room, and my muscle burrow hat was right next to me, and I'm like, oh, and I want to finish my muscle burrow hat. Well, let me tell you, it's nice to feel like that these days, then rather I don't want to do anything, I'm just going to bitch. That felt better to me. But in the end, lazy that I am, I did not get up and get my stitching. So I will be stitching tonight. And here I am sitting saying, oh, maybe I'll cast on socks, and maybe I'll cast on another muscle burrow hat. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I do have to start stitching because I only have the outline of the grab your drink done, and I have lots to do. I do have to figure out how to manage that because it feels like way too big. But Christy gave me my my temperatures and organized my temperatures and everything for me for my Christmas present. So I am all kitted up. I am ready to go. I'm ready to go. So there you go. I'm ready. And one thing she said last night was she was thinking that because each of these glasses is outlined, so you can see the glass, and these are all outlined in gray, light gray. So here, like you can see this martini glass. you can see the glass, and then the color is just at the top. So every one of these is outlined in light gray. In this light gray, which is sort of the glass color. But on her floss tube last night, she said that someone suggested, and she thinks she's going to do it, by putting making the glass in the low temperature of the day and making the drink in the high temperature of the day. So, I am not sure what I'm going to do. But since I do want to at least start on the shelf before I start on the glasses so that I'm sure I'm lined up correctly. I mean, I did grid. The time I've spent so far on this was partly in the gridding. So I'm thinking about that. Although the gray of the glass has kind of grown on me. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. But meanwhile, I have a lot of things I can stitch till I decide. And since the actual colored part in each of the drinks is not really very many stitches, even though I'm behind, it's not so far behind. Like you can see some of those drinks. I don't know if I should have done that. So meanwhile, I'm still working on it. The other thing is that she made a library just like last year's, and I did the embroidered version, which was a mistake for me because I'm not an embroiderer, and so my impetus to put it down was, pretty good. So my thought was, since I'm going to be getting the color out for every day, that while I had the color out for every day, let me do a library too. So I'll do the books. I can do a drink and a book with the same piece of, floss. And so it's almost no more trouble. It's an extra 10 stitches, You understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to keep it in my normal stitching pouch because it is so big and it's very stiff. Maybe I should have washed it before, but I already have it gridded and I'm not washing it now. But actually, I got it in there, but I need to do something, clamp the bottom of it so it's not quite so cumbersome. I'll be working on this and we'll see what happens. So this is my whip number 1. I only have 2. My other whip, which you saw was a whip last time, and I've worked on it, but not tons. I think I just had done like 1 row when you saw it in the last podcast. So I've gotten much further than that. I'm talking about my Forest Park cardigan. I'm probably messing myself up by opening this up. Forest Park cardigan by Knit for the Soul, Kay Hopkins. And this was a gift from the wonderful Lisa. And she knit this, and I really love it. This is mosaic knitting. I'm currently not a lover of color work, but I do like mosaic. So this is what I'm knitting. And I got exactly to the place where the mosaic would start, and I had to think a little bit. And it wasn't a lot. I'm sure I don't have to think a lot, but I got just as far as I could go without thinking very much, and then I stopped. But I am going to pick this up again because I've got my mojo back, and I'm, So this is yarn that was given to me by my friend Mane in Santiago, Chile. And I have 2 colors. I have this minty green and then I have a gray. So the Second color will be the gray, and I will play it by ear as to if I have enough of the mint or I need to do the collar in the gray also, or the cuffs or something like that. Here's my notes, because I've had, it was do this, when for the collar, and do this for the sleeve, and I was keeping track, but I'm going to have to reorient myself because it has been quite some time since I knit on this. But this is my second whip, my Forest Park, and I will have more of this to show you next time I podcast. And if my mojo continues and life continues as it is, I'm hoping that I will podcast sooner than 4 months from now. November, December, January, 3 months from now. It's only been 3 months. But I used to podcast every 2 weeks, But anyway, having my mojo back has really helped my mental health. Having those of you who join me on the vlog every day has helped my mental health, and I really, really appreciate your company and your support. I cannot tell you how important it is to me. Let's see. Just trying to see my notes. My life notes, since I talked to you, I did go to the Outer Banks of North Carolina with Dennis's family. Some of the people couldn't come. I think I mentioned that on the podcast, because they either had COVID or had been exposed to COVID. So it was a little bit of a different crowd, but we had a wonderful time and nobody got sick. So that was excellent. Dennis and Aura and I all got boosted in the middle of November. So Dennis and I felt like if we were very careful, we could go to Florida to see the kids for Thanksgiving, and we did do that. So that was a lovely trip. It was so good to see them and so good to hug the grandchildren and spend some time with the family. It really was very nice. And we stopped at Dennis's aunt and uncle on the way home and had a nice visit with them. It was really great. And then Christy came at Christmas time. Rich was not able to come. He didn't have enough vacation time, and he had things that he had to do. So she came by herself, and we had a lovely visit. She was able to, see all her family while she was up here, and that was really nice, and it was good to spend time with her in person. Although, of course, I watch her floss tube and craft with her most Sunday nights. So that was fun. And Dennis and I spent a quiet New Year's Eve to ring in 2022, and that's catching you up pretty good. That's where we are. So I'm hoping that my plan is to do a pictorial retrospective of all my finishes for 2021, not including the ones I've just shown you, but the things from prior to the boxy. Everything I finished prior to the boxy. I'm going to either post pictures I have or take pictures and do kind of a picture retrospective now using my my Flame and Fiber podcast music. And so I will leave you to watch that or not as you wish. And I will edit this out if I don't end up doing that. Because it's starting to sound like a lot of work, and which means that I won't have the podcast up today. So we shall see. Meanwhile, I just want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for sticking with me, even though I'm such an erratic podcaster. Thank you for helping keep me sane throughout this COVID journey that we're all on. And I hope you have lots and lots of time to do the crafting that brings you joy. Please join us for the Ode to Joy Make-Along for 2022. And I will talk to you soon. Some of you tomorrow. Bye.